today we're going to get into something that I think a lot of people are going to freak out about. And so I encourage you to tweet us. I'm at Dues News. You're at All I Do Is Owen.
Yeah, it's your favorite Twitter handle, I know.
All I Do Is Owen.
Tried to get me to change it.
So what we're going to get into is how Muslims like this are being able to turn into radical ISIS soldiers. Because essentially ISIS is saying we're everywhere now. We're nowhere and we're everywhere. Yeah, we're fighting a war, caliphate. But we've got guys everywhere who are buying into the ideology. And how do they buy into that ideology? And I think one of the reasons that helps create a fertile ground of people who can be susceptible to suggestions of, hey, strap on these explosives and go do this. Hey, take your car and run these people over. Hey, go get a truck and run through a Christmas crowd. I think one of these things, and there's plenty, and I heard about this last night. I'd never heard about it before. It was Gavin McInnes on Joe Rogan's show, the latest time he was on. And he was talking about Muslims and the inbreeding that goes on in majority Muslim countries, especially in the Middle East, Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, Afghanistan. Where else do we have? Iraq. I don't know how it is in Iran. But they found, and I'm going to read you some case studies. I'm going to read you some studies they did of people, Pakistanis moving to England. All right, this is the Bradford study. This is out of the BBC. So before you start calling me a racist, go to that BBC article, guys. Bradford study finds higher birth defect risk in married cousins. The number of babies born in Bradford is a majority Muslim area in London, is nearly, with birth defects, is double the national average. And so they're like, why is it double the national average? And they're saying, I can't even pronounce this word, consanguineous marriage. I probably pronounced that wrong. Consanguineous, thank you. That's why I need Zimmerman in my ear. Accounted for nearly thank you, Ashley. A third of abnormalities in a study of more than 11,300 babies. They said the risk of birth defects among children of blood relatives remains small at 6%. And they say 1.7 babies in England and Wales are born with the birth defects as heart problems and Down syndrome. But in Bradford, it was double that, 3%. Of the 5,127 babies of Pakistani origin, 37 had married parents who were first cousins, compared to less than 1% of married couples nationally. And so this isn't to say that inbreeding doesn't happen everywhere. It happens all over the place. People marry their cousins. Last year, the BIB project found cousins getting married was becoming more common among British-born Pakistanis in Bradford than a generation ago. So more people are doing it. And there's more people to choose from in these larger cities. It's not like you're stuck in, the people in your apartment.
And most of these are arranged by families anyway.
They are arranged. And we have a clip of that. It's the same clip we played yesterday, but it was the lady from Somalia who's basically saying Islam has to come under a reformation. It has to change. It's not compatible with the Western world at this point. If they want to come to the Western world, if you want to be part of this culture that we've created, then you're going to have to make some changes, essentially is what she's saying. A come to Jesus moment or a come to Muhammad moment, whatever
whatever tickles
your deity is. So that was interesting reading that. And then then a professor started talking about this study. His name is Professor Stephen Jones. One of Britain's most eminent scientists has warned the level of inbreeding among nations Muslims is endangering the health of future generations. The geneticist says it was common in the Islamic world for men to marry nieces and cousins. He said Bradford has a particular problem and warned about the health effects. And apparently people freaked out on him. And let's see where it says that. And he talked about the royal families too. British Pakistanis make up 3% of all births. They account for 1 in 3 of the children born with genetic illnesses. He also said incest is more common than realized, is more often realized in every part of society, adding it was particularly prevalent among the royalty. Right there. There's a huge amount of cousins marrying each other over there. Research in Bradford has found babies born to Pakistani women are twice as likely to die in their first years as babies born to white mothers. And he said genetic problems linked to inbreeding identified as a significant cause. But he also talked about the royalty inbreeding. He explained Prince Charles and Diana could both be traced back to Edward I, with Prince Charles able to do it through 3,000 lines, overlapping connections between people in his family tree, and his wife been able to do it with 4,000 lines, making the Princess of Wales a stronger aristocratic heritage than her husband. So this happens. Darwin first started talking about this when he was studying these because they were finding the royals were inbred. And there's an interesting article that I picked up called The Habsburg Jaw and Other Royal Inbreeding Deformities. So we're not just saying it's Muslims that are inbreeding, and that's royals do it. And royals have been known to be very psychotic. Henry VIII, British royals, definitely. Here's what the Habsburg chin is, the Habsburg jaw, which is right here. If you guys want to get a document cam of that. Is this a good spot for it?
There it is.
Right there. The Habsburg jawline kind of got this. So this is a result of inbreeding is what geneticists are saying. That could be possible. They said they believe the Habsburg jaw originated in a family of Polish royals, and the first person to have been known was Maximilian I, the Holy Roman Emperor who ruled from 1486 to 1519. He had a pronounced underbite, so it's like an underbite jaw. Mandibular prothagonism is what they call it. So that's interesting. But go ahead. And I want to find something on this.
Yeah. So
quick.
I've got the story pulled up here. Saudi Arabia. This is from the New York Times in 2003. Saudi Arabia awakes to the perils of inbreeding. And it specifically talks about a story in Saudi Arabia. I would imagine that this is somewhat of a common story. When she was 17, marrying age for a Saudi girl, Salah al-Hafiti was presented with a husband. And of course, it turns out that the husband was her cousin. This is a family arranged marriage in Saudi Arabia. This is commonplace. So she goes on to have some kids, and the first two boys end up being healthy, but the third, a girl born with spinal muscular atrophy, a crippling and usually fatal disease. So this is what you're talking about. Oh, and then they went on to have another fourth, sixth, seventh children, all born with the same disorder. So basically what you have here, and the story goes on, and it's basically widespread inbreeding going on in Saudi Arabia with these arranged marriages. And to just put it pretty bluntly, you increase the risk, you increase health risks, multiple health risks, when you inbreed. And the science is pretty much plain and simple, pretty much proven time and time again with this, especially when you read stories like this.
And it doesn't happen all the time in every instance, but it increases your chances. And,
and that's what
the statistics are showing that this is happening.
So now you begin to get into the topic of discussion here. Well, how can this lead to, and boom, there it is. Thank you for pulling that up. How does this lead to radicalization? How does this lead to an environment that makes it rich for people to be radicalized? Well, just like you're going to suffer from physical disabilities, you're going to suffer from mental disabilities. Muslims suffer insanity, low IQ, recessive disorders from 1,400 years of inbreeding. And that's what you're going to get. Now, again, Rob, like you said.
Now listen to this. Research shows that IQ is 10 to 16 points lower in children born from related parents as opposed to non-related. And they say IQ in inbred children 8 to 12 years found to be lower, like 69 was there in the rural and 79 in suburban populations. And they said another study shows the risk of an IQ lower than 70 goes up 400% from 1.2% in children from normal parents to 6.2% in inbred children. So it's a 400% increase in children of inbred. So that's a big time drop. That's borderline retarded right there.
And think about it like this too. So you sit there and you say, well, 5% chance. Okay. Well, guess what? You do that for 1,400 years,
It's going to
You're going to have a lot of 5%.
And it compounds on itself.
Exactly.
It definitely compounds on itself.
The 5%ers.
And that article that y'all brought up, it's an interesting story. And this was pilots who were training other pilots. And this is from a journal in Australia. During the pilot transition program with the KV-107 and the C-130 with Lockheed, we found that most Saudi pilot trainees had very limited night vision, even on the brightest moonlit nights. Their training retention rate was minimal, including maintenance personnel. Some had dim memories. They had to be constantly reminded of things that they were told of them the day before. An American, British, or Western instructor is burned out pretty quickly. It took Muslim C-130 pilots years before they could fly in the dark safely, and then they would be reluctant to leave the lights of the city. Ask any Marine, Air Force, or Army guy who's been trying to train Iraqis, especially Afghans. Islam is not only a religion, it's a way of life all the way around. Yet another set of revealing facts about Muslim beliefs and traditions is 1,400 years of inbreeding.
Now, and this is back to the story I pulled up earlier in the New York Times. Health officials and genetic researchers say there is no way to stop inbreeding in this deeply conservative Muslim society where marrying within the family is a tradition that goes back hundreds of years. Remember, this is the New York Times. Think about how far they've come in 15 years. Today, most unions still arranged by parents. Marrying into wealth and influence often means marrying a relative. And this has been going on for hundreds of years. And it creates a ripe environment for not just physical disabilities, but as you just pointed out, Rob, low IQs, mental disabilities, which then creates an environment for radicalization.
Easily suggestible. And I've got a couple articles here. If you could look up stuff on Richard Reed, the shoe bomber.
Got a bunch of articles.
Lots of people talked about him being a mental deficient. The guys who bombed the guys who actually carried out the bombing of the World Trade Center, they didn't even park the van next to the giant column they were supposed to because these guys weren't too bright. They were. Joe just pointed out that it looks like Richard Reed has a Habsburg jaw.
Yeah,
which is interesting.
And keep in mind, Richard Reed couldn't figure out how to light the fuse.
Well, he was given an intentionally defective bomb, which that's another person we can get to, as well as Abdul Muttalib, who was the guy who went on the plane with the underwear bomb. The bombs they were given could not be lit with a fuse, which is why we think these were carried out and these were intelligence operations.
And look, it's kind of like what Alex talks about, or what we've even experienced, Rob, when we go out, and I'm not trying to go down this road, just trying to make a point here. When we go out to Trump protests, some of the people we see protesting, they're lifeless. I mean, you can look right into their eyes and just be like, man,
not much going on.
You either got a bad batch of vaccines or you've just fluoridated yourself or brainwashed yourself to complete nothing. I'm sorry, but I can just look at Richard Reed and just say, I mean, that guy's just not fully there. He's got something off.
And that's another thing. It's not whether you were inbred or not could lead you down that way. You're getting poisoning later in life with vaccines. You're taking fluoride. You're eating GMOs.
You've had a lot of flu shots.
You're being attacked on all segments of your life, which is driving your mental state down, driving your physical state down, and leaving you open to more suggestibility. Because this is something I didn't really know about till last night, and I started reading articles about it and looking at scientific papers and what other scientists had said. And I'm just reporting what they're saying. But is this maybe a problem with maybe this is part of the problem in these Muslim countries, is this inbreeding? And if they start with that and go, hey, we're not going to allow cousins to marry each other, in 2 or 3 generations, you're going to see a big turnaround.
Well, that sounds racist for you to ask somebody not to marry their cousin. And it obviously is a problem. Is it the only problem? Probably not, but it is obviously a problem.
I mean, I think this is something we need to talk about and get out there in the air. Is inbreeding a main cause of radical Islam? Is that part of the reason there's so much radical Islamists running around? And hey, I will definitely admit that another part of the problem is the depleted uranium that we've dropped in a lot of countries. Yugoslavia, starting there. The bombs that we dropped in Libya, Afghanistan, Iraq, where are we in now? Syria.
Daisy cutters all over.
Yeah. You know, depleted uranium is going to cause just as many mental defects and birth defects. But then you're compounding it with inbreeding.
Well, and here's the thing. Maybe you know, I've never heard of any investigation into any of these terrorists to see if they were inbred, to see where they came from, their parents, how inbred they might be. Maybe that's an investigation that needs to go on in the future. But Rob, when you asked me, before we go to Ali's video, who talks about what we're talking about, you asked me, you said, hey, pull up some information on the underwear bomber, the shoe bomber, the World Trade Center bombers. And this was stuff that I didn't really research. I was young. I wasn't really into news. So I was actually doing a little bit of research. Maybe they're all inbred. Maybe they're not. I can't prove it. But you know what I can prove that happens every time? They're all radicalized by Islam. Every single one of them is radicalized by Islam. And every single one of them, if they aren't from the Middle East, traveled to the Middle East, either Pakistan, somewhere in the Middle East at one point in their lives before they committed the act of terror. So there are patterns here that we can prove that go beyond the inbreeding, which is something that I can't prove based on a guy's name. I guess I can go pay for the family, ancestry, yeah, to see if he's inbred or not. But we can look at real issues here, which is they're being radicalized and the nations they travel to before they create these acts of terror.
Why is the fungus? Why is the mold? Why is the yeast taking over? What is going on? What has changed? Dr. Group, the new product, Myco ZX, supports normal fungal and yeast balance, proprietary blend of herbs and enzymes made with high-quality ingredients.
Yeah, fungus is a growing epidemic, and I've been testing this formula and making changes to this formula for over 10 years.
It's available at InfoWarsStore.com. We also have free shipping, orders $50 or more, and 10% off when you sign up for auto ship. Additionally, on top of that, please, we only have a limited supply of this. I want to get your reviews. I want to hear what you have to say. For me, it's been incredible. Myco ZX, antifungal, antifungus, anti-yeast. Get it today. Limited run. It'll be months till we get more. InfoWarsStore.com, InfoWarsLife.com, or 888-253-3139. I cannot sell something unless it helps somebody. And you can't support an organization that isn't fighting hard. Look at the response we're getting. We're changing the world together. You are the InfoWar. God bless you all.